Today we have roster management to discuss. And boy, everybody's talking about roster management. Does Tennessee need a GM? A GM would fix everything. Why don't you have a GM? Please hire a GM. So we'll discuss Tennessee and general managership. We'll also talk. That almost came out wrong. We'll also talk about the basketball roster that Rick Barnes continues to put together. Big Orange Caravan's been going on this week, so made me wonder: is Danny White? It's early. But is he the best AD ever over there? And cue those 10 people who always text me because their family lost the tickets. They had the lifetime tickets. I get the same 2-3 tweets a week. Danny White stole our tickets. But we're going to discuss just overall the program. Is Danny White the best AD Tennessee has had? And then also, I'm guessing you've seen this Bill Belichick stuff that's going on at North Carolina. It kind of made national news this week. Made Entertainment Tonight kind of national news this week. How would that be flying if it was here? Or would we just be saying, just win, baby, we don't care? Let's discuss all that. First segment of our program brought to you by our friends at the Garza Law Firm. When you hear the name Marcos Garza or Garza Law Firm, you need to think of 3 words: trusted, proven, and local. Marcos and his team have a stellar reputation in this community and all around East Tennessee. And unlike a lot of attorneys who advertise locally, the Garza Law Firm is actually based right here in East Tennessee. There are a lot of Birmingham and Memphis attorneys who advertise as though they are right here. And then you do a little research and find, oh, you're dealing with a lower level guy here who's working out of a strip mall. Garza Law Firm, that's not the case. They are East Tennessee. GarzaLaw.com to learn more. All right, let's welcome in the panel for today. And this is like one of our old-fashioned shows. It's been a long time since we've had the same 5 people in the same 5 podiums for the entire show, but that's what we're doing today, barring any health emergencies. All right, we got right there Josh Ward from 99.1 The Sports Animal. Josh, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Sean.
Chuck Cavaleris, longtime member of this panel.
Yes, sir.
Co-host of the Action Show on Sports Source Digital Network.
Loving it, baby.
Right here we got Ryan Callahan from Go Vols 24/7. And down there, my most trusted, the guy who's probably been on the most episodes since the beginning of the Sports Source, Bob Hodge. Because he was there the first week. I don't think you were there the first week.
That's the tail end.
Yeah, you came in.
And I'm feeling good now.
There you go. Excellent. Bob Hodge with us. All right. 24/7 Sports ranks Tennessee number 72 in their latest transfer portal rankings. That's you, isn't it?
I'm responsible for all of that.
I figured. Since the offseason began, Tennessee has lost 25 players in the transfer portal. 25 folks have left. That includes last winter, as soon as the season ended. So that's not just the spring portal, that's the whole thing. So they've lost 25, they've gained 7. Okay, now, you got to also keep in mind they had a huge recruiting class. They signed the full max.
Right.
But still, 25 out in the transfer, 7 in the transfer portal. That includes Tennessee starting quarterback Nico Iamaleava and starting maybe defensive back Jacoby Thomas, who both left. Some say this has been an absolute train wreck of an offseason. Others say, no. Tennessee is being smart and selective. I want to ask, has this been a terrible offseason? Has this been a bad offseason? Do you feel worse about this, or do you feel, it's fine, don't worry about it? Anyone?
When I hear some of these criticisms, I'm like, what are they missing? Aside from people maybe not being thrilled that they got Joey Aguilar as opposed to a sitting Power 4 starter that was proven and a potential Heisman contender this year. What else did they not get? I mean, there's a need at receiver. I think people see they clearly need another body there. That's a tricky one though because they're apparently not wanting to shake up the starting lineup unless it's for the right guy. I think they feel like they've got their starters unless they found a real impact guy. And right now in the spring portal, for instance, not a lot of guys out there, if any, that you would say is a possible starter. So when I look around, sure there's a need for another receiver. They could use another safety now. But outside of those 2, I don't see a lot they've not done this offseason. And I think they feel they've got internal options ready to step in for all the rest.
This is I think it's Nigel Tufnell from the Spinal Tap who says, yeah, but this goes to 11. So I look at you and I go, yeah, but they lost 25 players. I mean, I see what you're saying, but there's a perception.
Yeah.
Right. 25 out, 7 in, fail.
But you said it right there. 25 signees on top of the guys that they brought in the portal, and they didn't lose a huge senior class. So when you combine that with the outgoing guys, they're a few below where they could be. But when you look around at what they could have or what they would add, And the other thing from the transfer portal, I think people got to understand, Tennessee's been looking for backups in the transfer portal this spring. That's a hard thing to
That's a mistake right there.
That's a hard thing to get when you're looking for guys who are hoping for an opportunity. So if you're kind of looking for the exact right fit, and that's hard to do.
Well, isn't it all about Josh Heupel's approach? He's trying to build a roster that's going to sustain itself through the years by recruiting high school players. Isn't that right, Ryan?
Then he needs to start playing the high school
Well,
players when they arrive on campus.
I think we said
better this
that
year.
last week. But this is like the nature of the NIL beast in the portal. It's so easy to leave. It's too easy to leave. And every time somebody leaves, it makes news somewhere, right? So that's 25 times you hear somebody's leaving Tennessee, somebody's leaving Tennessee. And then the times you get somebody, it's like, yeah, we got somebody. So you're like minus 18, on the news front. And that's what people see.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think train wreck is way too strong of a reaction to it. I get concerns. I get some of the negativity. Wide receiver position. So Tennessee added Amari Jefferson. That was their one transfer get. A young, unproven player from Alabama who's been coming back from injury as well.
From like Baylor School, right, in Chattanooga?
Yeah, so I think they could have done better in December, not the spring. The spring had more limited options. The December window affected them here. But to step back, I would say the biggest issue, if you're concerned of this transfer portal effect on the 2025 season, is Tennessee went to the college football playoff, right? And there was a clear gap between Ohio State and Tennessee on the field personnel. And it's difficult to say that what Tennessee has done through the transfer portal and with a talented but obviously young class coming in, that's going to get the 25 roster closer.
You close the gap.
Closing the gap to the teams that are really contending for national championships. It's difficult to say this offseason has put Tennessee closer this year to Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama.
In fact, with a gun to your head,
Alabama rosters we've seen.
with a gun to your head, can you say that?
Yeah.
It's not difficult to say.
Right.
I would say it's impossible to say at this point. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. I'm not arguing it.
Right.
I would just take it even a step further. I see this as a rebuilding year. So the idea that you've closed the gap with Ohio State, this is just a reset year, and it didn't help that your starting quarterback is out. Bob, your thoughts on all this?
Here's what worries me about Tennessee losing 25 and gaining 7. You last year were one of the top 12 teams in the country because if you look at the other teams that were in the playoff, how many others have suffered through the same kind of numbers that Tennessee has? And so to me, and Josh, you're right, are you closing that gap with Ohio State and Georgia and Texas and those other teams that you're chasing? I don't see how, like you said, you possibly can.
This year.
This year. And, I would put a little bit more faith in the good recruiting class you brought in if those guys had been playing with Josh Heupel for the past 4 years. But it seems like the freshmen come here and you don't see them again for a year. Or you've got, say, the receiver Matthews. He caught how many passes last year? He's 5-star, caught 7. So
But they were really impressive catches.
So that's what worries me.
Yeah.
Is if you were a school that played freshmen and they got on the field early and developed early and you were getting better with them, I'd say, okay, that's fine. But instead, it looks like a lot of subtraction. I won't go train wreck, but I'll go with the train stuck at the station and ain't going anywhere for a while.
Well, and here's the only thing I would throw is, to be clear, I don't think they're taking a step. You're not closing the gap on Ohio State, so fire him. No. They're not closing the gap on Ohio State this year.
Yeah.
If it turns out he does play a bunch of these freshmen, and these freshmen look good, and the people he's brought into the portal look good, and you do close the gap on Ohio State next year, wasn't that a net positive? See, that's the difference. People look at it and go, no, it's all about this year. I look at it and think you're building a program. You won a national championship. Do you have to go through a year where you're starting a bunch of young people to get to the point? What did we say about Ohio State's defense last year? It was all those 4th and 5th year starters.
Right.
It was guys who had been there. So they went out and plucked people out of the portal, yes. But they had built that team, and it had been together for a long time in terms of that
Well, in
defense.
Michigan the
that
year
really won
before,
for
when they won, it's the same thing
Veteran
with Michigan
team.
when they won
Right.
the national championship. That was an old team by today's standards.
And when it was a young team, people were still saying Jim Harbaugh can't beat Ohio State, and he had to take a pay cut to stick around and all this stuff. So I just think that I wouldn't say that this is the end all be all year. I just think it's going to be slow growth this year, but we'll see. We didn't even get to the main topic here, so we're going to do that in the next segment. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Whether you are a construction company or do-it-yourselfer, you start your projects with A.G. Hines Company. They're located downtown Knoxville on Hines Street. They're also in Blunttville if you're watching this on YouTube or up in East Tennessee, Upper East Tennessee. Gordon Hines and his family, it's 4 generations that have been working there at A.G. Hines Company, and Gordon and his family who are there now are just really, really good people. The term salt of the earth is kicked around too often, but if there's anybody that I would describe as salt of the earth kind of people, that's them. Fantastic. I couldn't be happier about having them on this show, and I think you wouldn't be happier than going down and starting your project with A.G. Hines Company. I promise you, if you've ever done the big box store stuff, you're going to go to A.G. Hines Company and you're going to see the difference immediately. aghines.com. All right, Josh Heupel said this week that Tennessee has really good people that handle everything that goes into the recruiting process. Our personnel side of it, what we're doing on the high school side of it, and the portal side of it. But he and Danny White have both said, well, with revenue sharing coming, we all act like it's a done deal. Schools are already spending revenue sharing money.
Right.
Cool. Hope this judge goes ahead, and she delayed it the last time, but they say if revenue sharing is coming, we'll have to take a look at this. Maybe that changes. My question is just a lot of people out there, they look around the SEC and they see that you're one of 4 or 5 schools that doesn't have a general manager.
Exactly.
And they say, why don't you have one? We wouldn't have had this bad off season if it hadn't been for your lack of a general managership. My question then, Tennessee needed a GM, and we've talked about this, so hold off. Does Tennessee need a GM?
I'm going to go with yeah. I mean, you go back in NFL history, and there was a time when they didn't have GMs, and most of the head coaches acted as their own general manager, and there was a lot of resistance, but you go through the 70s and 80s, and then that virtually disappeared except for a couple of big names, one of which we may even talk about later. But GMs in the NFL became a thing, and every team has one because it worked. And I think in college, it probably is going to end up working. Now, some of the GMs that have been hired, I don't quite understand why schools went the direction. Can't think of the Raiders' name, Crosby. He is a GM for his school. So, yes, I will say they need a GM.
Yes, I think you do, because you look at how much, I think Bob hit on it, how much college football is more like the NFL now. I mean, it's changed that much. Look at Josh Heupel last year. You mentioned you get ready to play Ohio State. He can't even really concentrate on the playoff game coming up because of all this turmoil going on within the program on NIL stuff.
Well, you would think he can. For all we know, he's got people that he just said he trusts these people and they're handling it.
Well, yeah, but who would he bring in that he trusts outside of his comfort zone? Is another
okay,
thing.
I would hold
and
off with that.
That'll be later. But yes, you need one with so much more going on to deal with, and talent evaluation would be part of it.
We got 5 people to talk, so everybody needs to.
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't guarantee that everything is going to work out, but maybe it helps with some of the public stories that have come out where the Ricky Gibson case, which ended up being worked out, but the Nico situation wasn't. Yeah, so I think part of that comes back to the perceived drama that can surround it. From December to the spring, you can't keep every story from coming out, but a GM can help with that, can help with talent identification, financial side management. There's a lot that can go into that position.
So, yes. You don't think it's necessarily a fix-all?
It's not. Well, for one, who would he hire if he hired a GM? Would he promote from within? Because I think there's a real chance he would do that.
Yes, probably.
If he would go out and hire a guy
What's the difference?
Yeah. So if you're giving the title to someone who's already in the building, it doesn't really change anything. And are you giving them full power to control all roster decisions, or are they still just deferring to Josh Heupel at the end of the day?
To use your NFL analogy, does the GM over the coach or is the coach over the GM?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, most of the time it's the GM, depending, unless you're one of these uber successful coaches.
In
If
New
you're
England,
Kansas City,
in New England right now, they hired Mike Vrabel, and he's telling the GM what to do.
and he's not uber successful,
No.
but pretty successful head coach. But right now, if you don't have that designated person, and he trusts everybody involved with this, so somebody who is below him gets to make these decisions, whereas if you had a specified person, okay, maybe it's still a collaboration, but I would think appointing this person to do it instead of a group effort would be better.
And I don't think
Right
there
now,
are coaches who, okay, do you think most coaches are still running their programs? Or
Yes.
Bill Belichick is not answering to Michael
No.
Lombardi.
I don't think so
I
anyway.
bet, whoever's at Stanford probably isn't answering to Andrew
Kirby
Lombardi.
Smart.
Ohio State's been mentioned to me. Ryan Day, I
Right.
think, probably still calling the shots. So, I mean, that's my thing is if it's not changing anything about the way you operate on a day-to-day basis. Now, I think there's value in having another voice in the room. If it were me, I would bring in an NFL guy who's managed a salary cap before or been involved in that, and I would have him as part of the discussion. But if you're taking one guy and he's responsible for finding guys in the portal, and you've got one guy who's responsible for negotiating with your current players, keeping them out of the portal and things like that, and you're dividing it up and covering all the bases, that might be the same effect as what people are hoping a GM title would give you.
But see, I go to Chuck's point. If it all sits with your head coach, then when he's preparing to play Ohio State in the playoffs, he's also having to deal with all
Exactly.
these other off-the-field issues. I would have somebody who he brings in the final white paper and said, here's where we are, instead of the distraction that would come with that.
I just know, and you do too, most of these coaches, you think Nick Saban's going to let somebody tell him?
As I told someone the other
Kirby
day,
Smart is
But-
saying he will not have a GM.
But once again, I think when you get to a certain level, even like you said, in the NFL, Andy Reid's going to make the decisions, not the GM. But I think as you work yourself down the food chain, some of these guys probably have that help, and there are NFL teams where the GM does make the decision.
I see it as, I have no problem with him bringing in help. I think he's already looking at it as though he's got help. But let me ask you this. You touched on it. Who's he going to listen to? So let's say Tennessee goes out, and let's say, we got to jump ahead here. So if Josh Heupel says, I don't want a GM, and Danny White looks at it and says, got to have one, do you force Josh Heupel to have a GM? Answer yes or no.
No. If Josh Heupel says, I do not want to have a GM and he's the head of your program, no, I don't force him to do.
Okay. Let's say he says, okay, I'll acquiesce, we'll do it. And I don't know that he hates it, but we'll just say, it sounds like Kirby Smart ain't doing it.
Right.
But let's just pretend that now in this scenario, Heupel's okay with it, and UT goes and brings in a former UT guy, let's say Reggie McKenzie, who's done stuff. Now that would probably not be the guy, but how much is Josh Heupel going to listen to him? Because he doesn't know him. In terms of his offense, does Josh Heupel hire a lot of guys from outside?
No.
So what's the point unless it's just so? And I see where Ryan's coming from. If you've already got a guy who's one of your underlings, you're in charge of cap. Just take care of it. What's the difference between we're doing that and we're bringing in somebody else who I'm going to say just handle the cap? These are the guys we're after. I don't know. Maybe with somebody who's
But
proven
if you
they got
already
a better.
have that guy,
Right.
and he's acting like a GM, just go ahead and call
Right,
a
and
spade
say,
a
here's
spade.
Call him a
He's your
GM just to
Right.
quiet the
Right.
people.
I got no
problem with that.
I also think it comes back to this. If you're going to lean heavily on the portal and acquiring players,
Which they don't.
then I think you need a GM. But if that's not your approach, I don't think it's nearly as important to have one.
Here's the exact scenario I've laid out. So say there's a guy in state that Tennessee really wants and the price is getting a little too high for them. The GM says, we need to walk away. I think the price is too high. If the head coach still thinks at the end of the day, no, I want him, is that really going to be left to the general manager in that situation? I don't think so.
Would a GM have handled the Nico thing differently? There's no way to know, but
It would depend on what he thought of the value.
It seemed like you'd be paying him or you wouldn't.
Yeah,
Same thing as
same
what
thing.
happened. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Uncle Jim's River Cove Campground. Weather's getting warmer. Smokies are calling to you. The great outdoors are waiting for you. Visit rivercovecampground.com today. What you'll find is Sevier County's premier campground. That's whether or not you like to get up there with the family in a tent or whether you like to roll up there in a great big RV. Either way, they've got tremendous setups. They've got visit them online just to see it. Trust me. Even if you don't intend to go to River Cove Campground, go take a look. There will be some of you who go, you know what, I suddenly want to go to River Cove Campground. I promise you. It's the most unbelievable setup you'll ever see. rivercovecampground.com. All right, Ryan, we're going to catch up here in some time. The Vols added quarterback Joey Aguilar last week. We know that. This week they've added a defensive lineman, Josh Shell from Grand Valley State. People were clamoring, get the kid from Grand Valley State. And they added three-star cornerback Colton Hood from Colorado. Effectively, they swapped the defensive back with Colorado. You got a corner, they got a safety. Tell me about the kid from Grand Valley State. who also played baseball. I know.
Yeah.
Well, who went there to play baseball? Tell me about that kid, and then tell me about the DB from Colorado.
Yeah, Josh Shell, I think he's a pretty interesting pickup. I mean, you're looking for a second paired defensive tackle, so you're really looking for a rotational guy. Again, as we've kind of talked about, hard to find sometimes a guy who's willing to come in and not necessarily be a starter. So you're already looking for a guy that's not going to break the bank, but be a pretty interesting player. I think this guy fits that description. He's a good athlete, as you said, played baseball, went to Grand Valley State to play both sports. Originally signed with Army out of high school and had about 20 Division I offers. So he's not a guy who just
Completely
had no
unheard,
interest and
yeah.
went to Division II because he had nothing. So I think good athlete, prides himself on having a high motor. So some things there that make sense and why Rodney Garner wanted him. And this is the top guy among the guys they identified in the spring portal. This is the defensive lineman they set their sights on and wanted. Colton Hood, he's actually a former 4-star out of high school from the Atlanta area, started his college career at Auburn.
So he's been downgraded to a 3-star now?
Went there for a year. Well, he may be a 3-star in the portal. I haven't seen if we've got a rating on him yet, but either
Yeah,
way.
he's 3-star in the portal.
Yeah, so he, but yes, again, went to Auburn for a year, didn't play much, redshirted, went to Colorado, was behind Travis Hunter and played a good bit off the bench, started one game. Talking to the publisher at our Colorado site and 24/7 Sports Network, he said of the 28 guys Colorado's lost in the transfer portal, you could argue Colton Hood was the biggest loss for them. So this is actually a good get for Tennessee. Wouldn't be surprised if he's an NFL player in the future. So I think that's a really nice get for Tennessee and a guy with 3 years of eligibility left. So some long-term potential beyond just this year.
Yeah, but he lost a star just entering the portal. He was a 4-star. He goes in the portal. He comes out a 3-star. They don't tell you that when you go into the portal.
Good athlete, returned 6 kickoffs at Colorado last year, so he can maybe help on special teams too.
Yeah, and here's the deal. The Grand Valley State guy, we're laughing. I'm laughing because it's Grand Valley State. That doesn't mean you can't find somebody impressive there. You see it every year. You see guys going to the NFL from these little schools. It can happen. But in terms of all the clamoring and freaking out we do as a fan base and as media.
Well, I felt
it's
better about it after Ryan's explanation than the
See,
20
you would've been
offers in
freaking
the
out.
Army. Yeah, I felt better about
Oh,
it.
yeah, you felt better. We got a kid Army wanted. Yeah.
And 20 other. 20
Who were the
other
other 20? How many in the
it was
SEC?
the Bowling Green, Toledo, those
Yeah.
times. It wasn't. But my point there
MAC.
is. My point there is he didn't go Division II because that's all he had.
You'd have been playing him at Kent State.
I like the high motor, baby. Crank it up.
What's next
He's
for
a Josh,
Tennessee?
too, so we'll give him that.
Really? He's a
He's another
John.
Josh. What's next? Anything?
They're still looking at wide receiver. I think still exploring options at safety. They've kicked the tires on linebacker, but I don't see that happening. So I think it basically comes down to those two positions. Can they find anything? They had a receiver in this week, Jonathan Brady from
cash.
Cal, and that wasn't a fit. I think, again, too many guys. Basically the issue in the spring portal is the few quality players that are out there, they're going to want a lot of money or they're wanting an opportunity. Tennessee's mostly looking for guys who aren't necessarily looking for either of those things. You're wanting guys who can make a little bit of money but not expect to be a starter. And for a veteran who's shown anything, what guy is going to want to accept that?
But I would almost think if you could get a guy that could be a starter, you get a guy that could be a starter.
We kind of
But
talked
that
about it though.
upends your other receivers are suddenly going to say, well, wait a second. What are you paying us? If you're paying
Right.
him this, you're paying a starter. What about my money? What are you
Oh,
doing
I
to
mean,
me?
I'm
I'm
not-
going in the portal.
It's
He's saying
the
if you can-
domino effect.
Well,
yeah.
he's saying too, if you can get a starter, And I think
Right,
they
but-
would for the right guy. I just don't think there's really anybody out there this
then-
spring that fits that.
But you're going to lose whoever you displace.
Yes.
So if you're trying to build
Well, you could.
depth,
Bob, to me, the mind-boggling thing about that is the receiver at Syracuse. I mean, he wanted $2 million. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Tennessee-
know the update on that,
See,
but
that's a
could
good
he
example.
start? Maybe.
Good example. Tennessee was interested in him,
Right.
but at what price? I mean, I don't think they were going to go nearly as.
but again, I keep being told, open checkbook,
Well,
all the money in the world.
Well, but here's the distinction there. They have the money, I think, but it's just, do you want to spend it? If you spend X amount on a wide receiver and it's more than one of your starters, well, suddenly you've got an internal problem and you've got to pay everybody. So
And you need a
that's just
general
like-
manager to sort it out.
That's the way I run my budget. I'd like to have a brand new truck. I just choose not to. But I've got the money.
Yeah, just choose not to. All right. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Termite swarmers are out there, folks. If you see something swarming when you go outside by your house and you're wondering, I don't know if those are gnats, are those some sort of ant? What is this? You better be sure. Call Southeast Termite and Pest Control. They'll swing by, give you a free inspection. They'll tell you whether or not those are termites or not. And if they are termites, you better get on it. And the team to help you get on it, Southeast Termite and Pest Control. It's right there in the name, the Termite and Pest Control. These are good folks. I've used them for many, many years. Can't recommend them highly enough. SoutheastTermite.com to learn more about this locally owned, family owned business. All right. Rick Barnes added a pair of players to his basketball roster this week. Amari Abrams, a shooting guard who hit 37% from three-point range last year at Louisiana Tech. Abrams is kind of the poster boy for what the modern college experience is like. He began his career at Ole Miss, then he went to Georgia Tech. Last year he was at Louisiana Tech, and this year he'll be playing for your Vols. Vol for 6 months. UT also added a guard from France. We were joking beforehand. I guarantee you his name is Clarence Masamba. He will get here. I'll say that for a year, and then he'll let everybody know. Actually, it's pronounced Clarence Masamba. That's what happened with Vescovy. So how do you pronounce it? Clarence Masamba?
Masamba is what I've heard.
What about Clarence? It's French, so Clarence.
I haven't heard anything different, but like to your point, we could be proven wrong in 6 months.
If you're a French teacher and you know how to pronounce Clarence, send me an email and write it out phonetically. Anyway, I would give you stats on that guy, but not sure how much the stats would translate from AS Monaco Basket, where he played, compared to the SEC. Anyway.
He had 20 offers.
Spain, Italy. All right. Ryan, what do you know about these two?
Yeah, I mean, Masamba, obviously you're looking overseas because you have a need still. You're trying to build some depth on the roster. You want someone with some long-term potential. But look at what Tennessee's done in the past in the international market. I think it's a pretty interesting addition. Seems to shoot pretty well, has some length. There's a lot to like about his game long-term. Just we'll see what they get out of him this year. Amari Abram, I think that's a nice pickup for what they had. You know, I think people were hoping obviously a Darius Adams or someone higher profile would work out, but
yeah, he wound up committing to Maryland and their new coach, former A&M coach Buzz Williams.
Yeah, but you got an experienced guard, pretty good shooter from 3-point range as you mentioned, and I think there's a lot to like about him. So you got a guy with 1 year left and kind of patch that hole in the lineup, or at least another guy for the rotation there. And it sounds like they're done. Rick Barnes made it sound like they've got that one spot left, but he likes to keep it, so I don't think they're really planning to bring in anything else now.
See, now this is my question. Let's go ahead and put the roster up if we could. Saw yesterday he's still got 2 spots. You say he's got 1 spot. There's 12 guys on the roster. How many scholarships do you get? Is it still 15 or is it down to 14? It's down to 13.
Yeah, 13.
Okay. Well, so,
The Lady Vols have 15, correct, Ryan?
yeah, I was thinking I thought it went from 15 to 14. It's down to 13.
It's been 13 for a while,
Okay,
I think.
I didn't realize that.
But
But that's interesting though, because there are stories you can find them out there that there's 2 more spots.
well, some people are talking that there's if the 5th year of eligibility is granted, I think am I right
yeah,
in
of course,
hearing?
yes, yes.
Hey, you know what would be funny?
You
Look
get
at
somebody
that
else
list,
right.
John.
Anyway,
What if somebody already decides to leave because of playing time?
But if I understand correctly, there's some
doesn't
talk
matter.
of them awarding 2 more spots if that happens. So
yeah, it's just anyway. You can't. How many people are on the roster? Where are they coming from? It just check week to week. There are your returnees. You got 4 of them. You got 5 freshmen coming in, and you got 3 transfers coming in for Tennessee and Rick Barnes. And you also made a coaching change this week. Rod Clark, who was one of your lead recruiters, if not the lead recruiter, left for Indiana to go work with their first-year coach up there. And immediately, Rick Barnes went and got Amaro Morgan from California, knew exactly who he wanted, and just hired him immediately. Said that this was the guy he knew he would call if he had a slot. Thoughts on losing your top recruiter to Indiana? Any surprise in that move?
No, I don't think so. I think that Tennessee knew that could be a possibility. Rod Clark had been looking, gets a good spot at a big program in Indiana, and Rick Barnes knew I've got to get a recruiter, and his replacement is well regarded for his recruiting prowess. So fitting the profile of what's lost with the new coach that's coming.
Why was Indiana able to get your lead recruiter?
Well, yeah, and I think just looking at Rick Barnes when he made the comments about what happened, I think it had to sting a little bit. I mean, he didn't sound either how it happened or whatever, but obviously as quickly as he moved to find a replacement, he was ready to do that.
Right.
But
Now,
losing your lead recruiter, I don't think is ever good.
Rod Clark almost went to Michigan last year, so I mean that.
Why is he? What's the deal there?
I don't. Some guys just kind of bounce around. I think that's sort of his MO. I think he's just the type not to stay somewhere more than a few years at a time.
That's just kind of a lateral move.
Yeah, it's an interesting move.
Very,
and
I
for
don't
a
even
first
think
year
it's a
head
lateral move right now.
Well, right now, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago it would have been.
And maybe
but no,
this-
I think that's a.
Just wondered, did they pay him a
could
ton of
have
money?
just said, hey,
Maybe
we're gonna
this
give
is
you
his
another
path to be a head
$250,000.
coach.
Right.
Come here.
Could
You
be.
know,
All right, but Yeah, I don't know why that would be more of a path than here. Is the
I haven't seen a
question.
salary reported. If there's
Yeah.
a bump in pay, then it's not always lateral.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
They would
he
have to
was
be
in
a-
demand. He had 20 other offers.
Bowling Green, Army.
This is what that show's gonna be remembered
When,
for. And I still have 0.
welcome back. This segment of the Sports Source brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Summer's around the corner, folks. Those beautiful lakes around East Tennessee are calling. They're calling out to you. Don't waste another summer where you're not on the water, where you know your friends are out there. You know there are people out there enjoying themselves and you're sitting at home wishing you were on the lakes. Get to Madisonville Marine, madmarine.com if you can't make it to Highway 411 North in Madisonville. But that is the best place to buy a boat. There's no better place to buy a boat. The reason is their selection is unmatched. Their pricing is fantastic. They have people that order boats from Madisonville and have them shipped to Florida and California. Why? Well, you're not going to do that if you're paying more. It's great deals at Madisonville Marine. All right. You look at what Danny White has accomplished, folks, and I know there again, I'm going to get so many tweets from the same 5 people. He took my granddaddy's seats away. You look at what he's accomplished. Every team made their version of the NCAA playoff a year ago. UT has doubled its revenue. They've won the SEC All-Sports Trophy a couple years in a row. Facilities are being improved all over campus. He continues to hire good coaches and who win games and who keep their players out of trouble. That kind of checks all the boxes. My question is, it's early. It's very early. His whole story hasn't been written yet. But at this stage, with the Big Orange Caravan going on, everybody's looking at the different programs, is he the best athletic director Tennessee's had? Josh, I'm looking at you. That means I'm forcing you to say, no, Danny White is not the best. Or, yes, he is.
So if you make me choose a name, right now I would say Doug Dickey. Because all the sports success is great, and football's having success, but national championship success is a different level, and that's what Doug Dickey was a part of, right? I would say with the modern day conversations we're having of the business side and the growth and the technology that's involved with everything they're trying to do on a day-to-day basis, Danny White is the perfect kind of person to be in that position for the athletic director role. So I think more time will allow him to take that title as the best, and more football success could help with that. But Danny White, for what college athletics is right now, where it's more of a professional landscape, I would say Danny White is the kind of AD they need to have.
Well, we can disagree right away. I think yes, it is, and I think it's clearly yes. And Doug Dickey obviously put the power tee on the helmet, and he changed where you run.
Did
on
that
the
as a
field.
coach.
He did that as a
Right, did that as a coach. But to me, what Danny White has did, and the coaches, whether he brought them all in or he didn't, how these teams are showing up in national tournaments consistently. It's not just the SEC. You're winning in the SEC, but your teams are having success nationally. Baseball national championship. Danny White says, guys, that's great. We want our other sports. We want more of this. So, I mean, if it's not, I think it has to be Danny White.
Fundraising-wise, it's Danny White, and I think that may be the number one job of an athletic director today. Obviously, wins lead to cash, so you got to win too. But that's not the way I would look at it. Is everything should be about the almighty dollar? But I'm Pollyanna-ish on that. Clearly, it is. And when you look at the revenues that they are cranking up, hard to argue with what he's done. Ryan, is he the best they've had?
Yeah, for me, no question. I look at, you touched on it. He's shaken up some of the ways they've handled some tickets, and what's happened? They've sold out season football tickets 3 years in a row with now an interest list of, 23,000 or 21,000 still that would love to take any of those tickets that were turned back over. So he's selling tickets. He inherited Rick Barnes and Tony Vitello, so you can't give him full credit for everything that's happened.
He supported them, though.
But he's kept them there. He's brought, and the coaches he has hired have been a certain type of coach. That he hires coaches who play an exciting brand of their sport.
Rick Barnes hasn't seen the need to go flirt with any other schools since Danny White's
Yeah,
arrived.
yeah, and the big thing too, it's the little things for me, like adding the VOLS to the top of the stadium again. Things that have been popular with the fans that he knows how to add to the environment. He's the fireworks on top of the stadium. He's done a lot of nice little touches that tell me this is a guy that gets it and gets the bottom line as well as anyone Tennessee's ever had.
He's also got a little bit of a cocky streak to him.
Yeah.
I think he knows. I think he's read enough #Vol Twitter to know that if I show a little something here, they're going to be behind this. I think he gets that pretty much too. Bob.
The only reason I have it really, really close is Doug Dickey saved your bacon multiple times with the NCAA. And that was back when the NCAA had real teeth and you could have been in real trouble and you could have had sports programs that were really limited in
It was happening to
things.
everybody around the SEC except Tennessee, really.
And so Doug Dickey doesn't get enough credit for that part of what he did, was sort of being out there as your front man. But the other thing, and you touched on it a little bit, Ryan, that Danny White has done, is you go to the stadium in 1990, you're there to watch a football game, you're there to watch the halftime show. You go to the stadium now, and it's constant music, it's constant lights, it's Sterling Hinton getting everybody fired up. And the showmanship that has gone into presenting the games is something Doug Dickey never had a chance to do it because that just wasn't the way football or basketball was presented then.
Yeah.
So Danny White has embraced that, done a fantastic job with. I've told you I love night football games because of everything that goes on during those. So I'm going to have him even with Dickey because of the NCAA was at Tennessee's door and Doug Dickey was able to keep them outside.
Very quick, Chuck.
Just look at the hire when Danny White was made. What if Tennessee had gotten it wrong? What if you had brought in somebody that wasn't nearly to this level and set you back like we'd seen so many times before? How could they screw this up? That's what
You'd already have
they hit a
another
home
athletic
run.
director.
Yeah, they hit a home run.
Well, and please, let's just all remember this. I said it for years before that hire. The whole, we need Tennessee man. No, you don't.
Yes.
No, you don't. You need the best man or best woman. That's what you need. Fire them the best. Doesn't matter. I don't care if they went to Alabama. He's Alabama red. Well, if he's making you some Tennessee orange, Tennessee green, what do you care? I would say this on the Dickey deal, why I put White ahead of him. Doug Dickey ran the men's program. You had Joan Cronin at that time doing a great job. So when you look at, well, won a lot of national championships, football, Lady Vols, that was Joan Cronin. Now, granted, Dickey that was a unique marriage in terms of how the whole athletic director worked, the department worked. But Lady Vols had an AD of their own in terms of Joan Cronin, whereas Danny White's having to steer this whole ship. And he goes out.
That's a great point.
He goes out and gets
That
Kim
is a great
Caldwell,
point.
which is a good win. He's supporting the softball program.
I think he also caught some flack for not having men's basketball at a high level for a number of years.
Yeah, now he gets way too much flack, in my opinion, because he attempted to hire the right guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin O'Neill was the hottest name in the country when he hired him, blew up in his face, but that was the guy that everybody wanted. He was supposed to be Bruce Pearl before Bruce Pearl, even straight from Milwaukee. And he offered Roy Williams, people say we didn't spend on basketball. He offered Roy Williams the first $1 million contract in basketball. That's to get him from Kansas. You could say, well, he knew he wasn't going to take it. I've heard that.
But still,
well, that's a hell of an offer, though. So
Exactly.
he does get the heat for the basketball. I don't think it's as fair, but the bottom line is they didn't win in basketball when he was here.
Yeah.
You got when you did. I guess he was there at the end of the Jerry Green thing, or he was there at the beginning of the Jerry Green thing.
Yeah.
So that didn't work either. All right, so I'm going to teach this pen a lesson. When we come back, welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Pipe Wrench. How are your drains working? Is your AC unit ready for another scorching hot summer here in East Tennessee? Hot water heater, is it in good working order? If not, call Pipe Wrench today with dozens of trucks all over East Tennessee every single day. If they don't get to you in 24 hours, your visit is free. PipeWrench.com to learn more. All right. Wanted to break out my wifey board. Hang on a second. Let me do this. That's good television right there. All right. I guess I ought to get a pen. You see, we sit around here and talk in between these segments, and sometimes I just, I knew it was, I told you guys last night it's going to be one of these shows. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to rank football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, and softball. Those are the five biggies. Only two of them are revenue sports, but those are your five biggest.
Right.
No offense to golf and tennis and track. People do care, but they don't show up in droves like they do for these five. All right. I want to rank them in terms of which sports over the next 5 years do you feel are the most stable? And I don't mean stable bad either. All these are in good shape.
Yeah.
Which ones do you think have legs in terms of they're going to keep being good? But you got to factor in who's going to be coaching them too. You got to factor in all kinds of different things. So I'm going to ask you, what is the number one? Do we all agree? Let's just get to do we all agree? Baseball. You have a young coach who is, you're paying him well. You've increased the stadium for him. I don't think Vitello is leaving. I would go baseball as my most stable moving forward. Do we have any debate on that?
I'll throw out one, softball, because it was stable before baseball. As long as Karen Weekly remains as the coach, and we were talking about that, we don't know, what her timeline is.
Yeah,
But that program has been incredibly stable for a long time. I don't see that changing. You're right, baseball has hit a tremendous
National
peak
title.
and looks incredibly stable. But I mean, without the national title, I think softball has been stable the longest. And as long as you've got Karen Weekly there, I think it's going to stay stable.
I think he's on to something. I mean, the SEC in baseball, I will say, there historically have been some. I mean, there are some peaks and valleys for any program. LSU's had trouble. South Carolina was a power and then became nothing. Vanderbilt's hit some choppy waters. Who's to say Tennessee stays up there at this level for 5 years? So softball might be the easy.
Well, I think
all you
we've
people
seen-
that say I hate baseball, just remember, I said baseball and they're saying softball.
I think you've seen more struggles recently, especially in terms of winning series. And I would still have baseball there, but it's not like it's still that glory year.
You're
time.
right. These,
I mean,
what are they? Even top 10 right now?
Well, I mean, they've had.
I love it. This is great.
They've had some
Josh,
struggles in
softball?
the SEC.
If you guaranteed me Karen Weekly for 5 years, I wouldn't hesitate. They would be my number one.
She is, I don't want to, if it's a man, you speculate the age. If it's a woman, then I'll get an email.
Yeah.
And I know who I'll get it from, too. Disrespectful to women. The gist is, and it wouldn't be Karen Weekly, by the way, she graduated college in '87, so she would, judging by that, you would think she's around 60. So if she decided she was going to go till 70, she's got 10 more years. So
Yeah.
that's well within the 5 years. So softball, number one, most stable.
Most
And
stable.
best.
That's what I would go with.
I think so.
Stable and best. Okay.
Just
I went in thinking baseball, but you sold me.
No, baseball's going to be fifth because we're going to fire Vitello because you're not winning anymore. All right,
Then do
what's
you go
number
baseball?
two?
Baseball's
go
two
baseball.
for me.
baseball next.
But they're not winning the series.
I'm telling you, it's not like they're dominating like the
Right.
60-win season
Yeah,
last year.
exactly. I
Then
mean,
it's taking a step back.
that
guys.
program's in trouble.
Listen, I didn't say in trouble. I didn't say in trouble. I'm
I'm
just saying.
gonna go baseball.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that is.
And
All right, we got soft and base. What's next?
here, Bob had mentioned this before, and I kind of disagree. I think you got to consider women's basketball and what Kim Caldwell's done, and just being here a year and the talent she's bringing in.
there's
I
less of a
think they're going to be up there in terms of stable for the next 5 years. The fact she's only been here one
But that,
season.
that works
Yeah,
against
but-
it.
I
It's 1
think it
year.
works
Right.
for her moving
Well,
forward.
that's,
you have
that's
1 year
what,
of
that's
proof?
the reason
Yes.
I wouldn't have them if it is such a short sample size. If she had done this for 3 years and shown steady improvement, I would say that. But I just think right now, after one season, we don't know.
We do.
Well, let's
we do know.
Okay.
Well, how
Yeah, I would go men's basketball next.
I was saying, how do we rate stability? Is
Yeah.
that determined-
Well, you're going to have a coach. Is Rick Barnes going to
Yeah.
coach for the next 5 years?
So-
You would
so
think
I don't
not.
think so.
You
Yeah,
would
probably
think
not. The reason I would go men's basketball next is because there's a good reason to think he could be there for 2 or 3 years. And if we think that he's going to leave before the 5-year window ends, you then have a program that is very attractive. And you do have to go hire a coach,
Yeah, you
but that coach is going to inherit a program that's
where
very attractive.
that's where
So
I was
would go
going.
men's basketball.
I
But
think a
we've
new hire would be a good hire, but is that considered
I
stability?
mean, how many guys have gone to Arizona and it looked like a hit, and in Arizona
Yeah.
that doesn't work? Or how many
Right.
people have gone to
Texas.
Indiana? How many guys has Indiana
Yeah.
tried to hire?
And
or Texas? Yes, you got
Texas.
rid of Rick Barnes. You've gone through
Exactly.
coach after coach.
Exactly.
But if last segment Danny White won and the best athletic director ever,
He's going to
He'll
find
have
somebody.
recognition.
then you give him the
Right.
benefit of the doubt that he'll make
All
a
right,
good
men's
hire.
basketball or women's basketball? That's a tough one
I
because
would-
one's
I'm
got
gonna
the
go-
proof.
I'm going to go football.
As the third most stable? Okay, that's good.
And here's my reasoning. Josh Heupel doesn't seem to be going anywhere. We can talk about his player evaluation, player development, all these things, trouble in the portal, et cetera, et cetera. But he's been consistent since he's been here. I don't see him leaving anytime soon. So to me, I would put football in that spot because of the questions about Rick Barnes' age and because Kim Caldwell's only been here a year.
My least stable, football.
Ooh.
Not for anything Josh Heupel's done. Those people at home.
Yeah.
They care about football more than they care about any of these other sports. What moves the needle? What gets people maddest around
Oh,
here?
you're right.
A loss in basketball or a loss in football? A loss in softball or a loss in football? I think you can lose a fan base very quickly around here. I also think there are people who are already talking about, he's sitting right back there. We got a former director of this show who last week were sitting in the booth before the show. He said, Heupel's been a disappointment, hasn't he? And there are a lot of people who feel that way.
From what
He's
he
not a
took
championship. He's not a championship
And
coach. He hasn't won a championship. You're going to hear it this year. If it's the 8-4 kind of year that
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, you're going to hear a lot of people saying, "Well, we don't have the right guy."
And they've won 30 games over the past 3 years.
That's
and it's
right.
their best 3-year run
and
since
he,
the
and he
90s.
inherited absolute crap. The guy, it's not
Yes.
on him. I would keep him. I would look for reasons to build with somebody who's shown me promise. That's not how football works. It's certainly not how Tennessee works. They look for reasons to fire you. I mean, it was
and-
always, let's see how he does against Florida, Alabama, Georgia.
Georgia.
I don't hear Alabama and Florida get
I
mentioned
would,
anymore. Now it's just Georgia.
literally love to argue that point,
Go.
but I can't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a football thing. It's not a Josh Heupel.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And-
yeah.
and
Ohio State was a few months ago having a real conversation about should Ryan Day be fired
Yeah.
a few weeks before he went on
Right.
to win the national championship.
Jim Harbaugh had to take a pay cut
Yeah.
in order to stick around and win a national championship.
Now, how can you have stability in this current environment of the portal and NI,
that-
which it
for
can
any of them, that's a
change?
good
It can change.
Okay, you all have taught me back.
I think it's men's basketball because
third.
Yes.
and I'm with Josh.
But you're rolling the dice on the new
I'm
guy.
rolling the dice, but I think you would get a good hire there. And Danny White, to the previous segment,
I
gives
mean,
me the
football's
confidence.
a lot of trouble.
Softball, number one. Shocking. Baseball, number two. Then we got men's basketball, 3. Women's basketball, 4. And then football, 5.
I'm down on the football program now.
6.
Yeah, I mean,
Rowing is ahead of football. All right. Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Whether it's the most advanced home automation system you're looking for, that's a system to make your home life simpler, easier, or a state-of-the-art security system for your home or business, VFL JJ Surlis and the folks at Safety Systems, that's the crew to call. I've used them a million times. Love those guys. SafeTsystems.com. All right, we're going to make this quick because I want to catch up a little bit here. We got a goofball subject next that I think is good. A report came out in the Houston Chronicle this week that claimed Texas will be spending between $35 and $40 million on its roster this fall. That includes $20.5 million if revenue sharing goes through, so another 15 to 20 in terms of NIL. And it was also reported by Steve Sarkisian that Quinn Ewers, he did Dr. Pepper ads and stuff. He didn't take a dime from their collective, so it left money for other people because he just cut his own deals. And Arch Manning apparently is doing the same thing, not taking from the collective. All right, now Texas officials responded to that by saying, quote, "That's whacked." So it's not even close to reality. Danny White was asked about it this week, and he said no one knows what to believe anymore in terms of these reports and rumors. So I thought, let's have fun with that then. I went back and I found On3 put out their ranking of the top 10 biggest collectives. Now, what do you base that on? No clue, but that's a national site, so let's put this up. This was from last August, I think. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, the biggest collective in the country is Ohio State. The second biggest is your Tennessee Volunteers with Spire Sports. The third is Texas. 4 is Oregon. 5, Miami. 6, Ole Miss.
Wow.
7, Florida State. 8, Nebraska. 9, Louisville. 10, Missouri. What?
Wow.
Now, was this they did a ranking of most ambitious collectives? You know if this was that one or was this?
This one's gotten aggregated and kicked around this week as the 10 biggest.
Yeah. So I don't know. You're asking me if that's the reflection.
I'm just saying, does this look real? People are passing this thing around.
I mean, here's the thing about that. And what makes it the biggest? Is it just pure amount of money or what? I mean,
they didn't reveal what the money was.
Right.
so I think there's some.
most office space.
Yes.
Office space.
So, several programs probably belong on that list from that top 10, but it changes year to year. I would say.
Here's one that's beautiful. I did a little research. One national site found this and said the NCAA has made estimates as to what these collectives are spending. And I went and looked, and it's actually just a CPA who's come up with a formula, and he does it at nil-nca.com. That does not mean it's from the NCAA, but people put it out there. So I just want to see. I'm going to throw these numbers up here. Here's what his formula says. Tennessee not number 2, Tennessee number 15th. Number 15. Number 15th. $11.6 million. That seems low.
Low.
All right.
Yeah, that's not
Texas 22, Ohio State 20, LSU 20, Georgia 18, A&M 17, Michigan 16, Alabama 15, Florida 15, Clemson 15, Oklahoma 14. The schools look right to me, though.
Yeah.
I don't know about the budget, but that
that's a
looks
much more believable
than the Louisville and Missouri thing.
Because I wondered where Michigan was on the other list. Michigan wasn't even on there.
I'll say this, perception-wise, Georgia's not top 5. So that immediately makes me question this list. No one really considers
But
Georgia
it's
one of
a
the big
CPA with a
spenders.
website.
Yeah,
It's a CPA, man. He knows.
yeah.
No, that was kicked around as the NCAA put out an estimate. And you go there,
Yeah.
it's like, there's no NCAA logo here.
Now, there are some schools in that top 10 that don't seem like they belong, like Louisville, that absolutely belong. Like Louisville, remember what they did in the transfer portal in basketball this
Basketball,
offseason?
yeah.
So
Basketball's
they've got
huge.
some real money there. So
But still, Missouri,
Ole Miss kind of struck me on that first
they
list.
it's the portal king.
Yeah.
I mean, they certainly have
but
the,
it's
they
still,
spend it on
okay,
portal.
Ole Miss has that much money to be that far ahead of so many other
many
schools
billionaires
that you
do they
think
have?
would
they have
be-
a well-run collective. I don't know exactly where they are in terms of money, but they do spend it well.
Well,
and-
So somewhere between 2nd and 15th, the
Yeah.
truth lies with
Yeah.
Tennessee.
So you
Yeah,
get
I
that
mean-
portal money when you got a genius coach at Ole Miss. That's
Now
what
that-
brings that money.
Now that 11.6 million is completely bogus, but Tennessee is somewhere in the top 15. Where? I mean, are they 8th or are they 12th? I mean, who knows?
How come they ain't first?
And I would say that the money is so close between 1 and 15 these days that it's probably not a huge difference, or at least between 3 and 15. Now, maybe there are a couple like Texas and Ohio State.
I'll take it, yeah.
What was
that's,
it? What was it? Spire said they wanted initially 25 a year. Was that the goal in that first
I
article
think
they
20,
did with the Athletic?
I think 20, or was it?
I was thinking it was 25. Maybe it was 20, but
It's been a long time since they talked, much less.
Well,
said that.
yeah, I mean, you and I, if you want more on this, go to the Sports Source Digital Network, where Ryan and I had a conversation this week, went for about 40 minutes, talking about NIL and GMs and everything else. And the fact that the NIL landscape keeps changing. I mean, it's like an organism that just keeps moving, and you think it's going to be this, and then you
And
turn
it's-
around, and it's like, oh, no, it's over here now. And everybody's over here, and it's like, oh, whoa, now this is the thing. I salute anybody that's involved in these endeavors, because it's just madness in my view. Josh, I'm going to give you the final word. Is Tennessee giving out $11 million a year? Is it more?
It's more,
Okay.
for sure.
He seems very
it's gonna-
He
confident.
seems very
And
confident.
it's going to keep rising as it will with all those other schools.
All right, 15 million, higher or lower? We could do this like a game show.
I know.
20 million?
You
Because
could
here's
be,
the
you
thing.
could be Drew Carey.
Because here's the thing. So you pick the fat guy. So 20 million ballpark for Tennessee.
All sports,
Yeah. How much
Yeah.
are they spending? 20?
at least
Okay,
at
20.
least 20.
I mean,
So
the
they're-
projected revenue share is 20.5.
Yeah. So 20.5. So there you're talking. How much do you think in football are they spending? Ballpark.
15, 16?
I don't know.
But what I'm getting at is, if that's the case, then you are looking at 35 to 40, which is what the report was on Texas.
Yeah.
If you got 20 and a half in
Right.
revenue, and you're still going to, now the question is,
Yeah.
can you still raise as much funds NIL-wise once people
Right.
know they're getting a revenue share and a 10% talent fee on their tickets?
That's the thing that jumps out to me is the Texas story is not even that big of not even a story really, because if we know Ohio State was in the $20 million range last year, you throw in revenue sharing on top of it, I would expect Texas to be at 35 million plus.
The question is, does the NIL income change
Yes.
once revenue sharing is, because I'm guessing there are going to be some donors who are like, okay, you don't need me now.
Yeah.
Right.
It would drop, I think.
Yeah.
Remember when we used
Interesting.
to talk about this time of year, it was the conversation was well, who's the third string guard?
Yeah, that sucked, man. This is much
man,
better.
Where did that go?
Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. Folks, if you're sitting there thinking, I think we ought to stay around the house a little bit more, make your house more fun. That's how you spruce up the home. You get to Games and Things. Take a look at this. Games and Things has just what you need to make your home the envy of the neighborhood, or your cabin. Look what they did with this cabin in the Smokies. All of that stuff, the shuffleboard, the pool table, the ping pong table over there, table tennis as they call it. All that from Games and Things. You can really make your home the envy of the neighborhood by going to Games and Things. Visit ourgameroom.com today. All right, as I'm sure everyone's aware, Bill Belichick's story just blew up this week. It was literally national news, sports news, but national news because he had an interview with CBS this morning that went sideways because the girl he's dating is 50 years his junior. kind of messed it up, and she has gotten involved. She's telling PR personnel, people who've worked at North Carolina for 50 years, and the PR, I mean, been there for 20 years or something. She's telling them what they need to do, how to do their jobs, because she's apparently very wise in PR. They're putting out photos of they're on the beach. She's a mermaid. He's a fisherman. It's starting. I mean, here's the thing. It's the personal life versus school stuff. How would this be covered here? Because there are some North Carolina. This is a top 5 university in the country, top 5 public university in the country. And he wasn't a unanimous selection either. They had a booster that went rogue and forced it on Bubba Cunningham, the AD. That story's out there. How are you feeling? North Carolina would be freaking out. There are people that can't stand this. How would this be handled here in the win-at-all-costs SEC? If this is going on in Knoxville, one, I'm glad it isn't because I can't imagine how he'd cover it. But how would this be playing out? Would Vol fans just be sitting there going, if he wins, who cares? Or is this a bridge too far in terms of making your... Oh, that's another thing. He does an interview on CBS, not only in his ratty shirt, which he does, but it's a shirt that says Navy.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah,
You're
not
North Carolina's
You're North
coach.
Carolina.
That'd be like Bruce Pearl going a step further, and then he goes every time he gets a chance to mention Tennessee and wearing a Tennessee shirt while coaching at Auburn. How would this be playing out if it were at Tennessee, Josh?
Yeah, there would be a division. There would be a lot of people, I'm sure, saying it's about winning. He's the greatest coach of all time. Let him do his job. But there would be a lot of other people that would be embarrassed by the connection to the university. It's not just the relationship is what it is, but
Right.
now it's connected to the university because of everything you just mentioned, and then some with the effect on day-to-day operations with North Carolina athletics, plus the PR side where it kind of unraveled in the last 7 days.
Yeah.
They also had a deal to show, the NFL show Hard Knocks was going to feature North Carolina, and apparently she wanted to be so involved, the NFL said, yeah, we're no longer comfortable with this, and walked away from it. So she cost UNC a lot of publicity.
When does somebody sit her down and tell her what the situation is? And,
Well, he's old enough to put her on his knee.
and wait till the season starts. Is it just going to get worse during the season? You better win some football games, but somebody needs to rein her in a little bit.
Right,
Now-
right. If this was at
Now, honey, don't do this.
if this was at UT, if this was at Tennessee, I think there's 2 coaches, maybe a couple more, that could get away with this before he's ever coached a game. Now, after he starts coaching, that'll tell the tale. He wins big, I think all this stuff fades. But I think if Tennessee had hired a Bill Belichick, greatest coach of all time, or Nick Saban, I think you put up with this sort of the bad PR that's flowing in, the snide jokes. There's not a lot of other coaches, though, that you could get by with that sort of thing.
Hold on, I'm going to get your take on the other side of this. We're running long. Welcome back. Hey, folks, don't forget, you can check out us on Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. That's every Saturday right here at 11 a.m. You can also find us every day of the week free on YouTube. It's our YouTube channel, the Sports Source Digital Network. We got tons of extra content there for you that we put up all week long. Visit those today. You'll be doing me a favor, and I appreciate it. Also, don't forget that tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo, and that means you need to get to El Chico. All right. Is a coach's private life anyone's business, or does it become school's business when it creates bad press for the school? Ryan, what's your take on this whole Bill Belichick thing?
Yeah, I think the relationship is one thing. I think a part of this that would not fly at Tennessee is doing anything different on the football side, whether it's PR or whatever, because of a young girlfriend like this. So I think that's where people would say, like, this is a distraction for the program. Why does she have any say over the strategic thinking on the PR side of a coach or a program or whatever? So that would be not handled well, and there would be plenty of reporting probably about anything where she got in the way of a head coach at Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think there's, the difference between a private life. I mean, there have been plenty of coaches, men and women, who've had divorces or whatever, or you date somebody. That happens. They're humans like everybody else. Why should that matter? But when you take it from private to public, Josh, we were talking between the break, you made a good point. This isn't private. They keep putting photos of
Nothing
themselves
about
dressed
the
as...
relationship is private.
Yeah.
They've done as much as they can to try to publicize it and create attention. And
She has, at least.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
for
gone
sure.
along.
Yeah, he's gone along with it. He's aware that it's out there.
He's dressed like the fisherman while she's the
Yeah.
mermaid. Yes.
Yeah, and to act like the interview that they did with CBS was only supposed to be about his book. Bill Belichick has been around for far too long to know, or to think that other questions wouldn't be asked. He knew that they would be, and they're acting like they wouldn't be knowing otherwise.
It's just interesting. How would UT handle it? I don't know.
It wouldn't fly. I don't think it would fly.
The
I
fact
think
that it's
somebody
going
would
into year
say,
one is
right.
the tricky part of this.
I think it may
Yeah.
just be year one. I don't know how long he's going to be there.
Right.
And I think he's at the exact right. I mean, you've made the point of North Carolina as a university. I'm sure this is driving them crazy. This is the exact type of football program, though, that he needs to be at for them to tolerate this. Because if this is an Alabama, a Georgia, a Tennessee, anywhere that takes football really seriously, it would not be
day-to-day
flying well.
attention at Tennessee completely different from
All
North Carolina
negative.
football.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
you also have, besides the publicity, all these other things, is this is a person who's making decisions
Yeah.
affecting
Yeah.
your athletic program. And to me, that would be, okay, that's intolerable.
Yeah.
Your personal life is your personal life, even if you put silly pictures up on the internet. But when this person starts making decisions that affect our athletic program, nope, we're done.